With great pleasure, I present Al-Anon speaker Larcine from Hawthorne, California.
Hi, everybody. My name is Larcine. I'm a very grateful member of Al-Anon. And I want to thank Mike for asking us to come and speak. It's a real honor and a privilege to get to be here with you this weekend. And it's a real honor and a privilege to get to speak at the family meeting and with my husband. And how grateful I am this morning that, he didn't really talk about it so much, but my husband was very, very close to death before he got to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm very, very grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous for his life. And it's just, I'm overwhelmed this morning, especially because it was our anniversary on Tuesday. So you know how you do all that reflection stuff. We like to do the every anniversary take a road trip just to test the marriage a little bit, and see if we still got enough stuff to take it another year. And like you said, that building blowing up, that was just about how it used to be, absolutely how it used to be. And the life that we have today is just, it's phenomenal. You ever, like the Star Wars, how they always start the Star Wars movies, in a galaxy far, far away, a long, long time ago. That's just exactly how I think about the life that we used to have compared to the life that we have today as a result of these programs. And family recovery is a really big deal in our house. Absolutely, a huge, huge deal. And Butch is alcoholic, and he goes to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and I'm in Al-Anon, and I go to Al-Anon meetings, and his program is his program, and mine is mine. And we're really pretty good about keeping those things, where they're supposed to be, his business and my business. It's hard sometimes. I kind of liken it, if he has a booger hanging out of his nose, it's like I got to tell him. But it's not my job to wipe it anymore. So we try and do it that way, and vice versa as well. And again, it's the stuff that we've learned here. It's amazing how distorted, what I think my responsibilities are as a wife, the things I've done because I'm a wife, or I've used that as an excuse for bad behavior, and the tools that you have given us about, unconditional love, what that really means and what that really is all about. And we have a really, really good life today, and we're very, very grateful for it. Anyway, I'm just going to fill in all the blanks. He said he's a blackout drinker. He didn't remember crap, and he's always really grateful that he was a blackout drinker because I'm a yeller. I'm a screamer and a foot stomper and a cusser and a raise the roof kind of person, and he doesn't remember a lot of it. So that's how God was good to him, and. But he kind of described to you what he was like. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, so I'm from the very beginning. My dad's a master sergeant in the Army. My dad's a daily drinker, and later on I get to know alcoholic. How do you know that at the time? I certainly didn't. But my dad died at 55 years old, and he died the disease that they talk about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Total insanity and death. And I can't even tell you the last words my dad said to me because they were so foul and vulgar that I would not even begin to repeat them from this podium. My dad was tied up. He was restrained in his bed, and he just died that death. It was pretty awful. But I learned growing up, be a rule follower. Do what you're supposed to do. Follow the rules and regulations of life. Get the instructions. Find out what people want you to do. Do it as good as you can. Do it even better than you can. Keep your nose clean. Stay out of trouble, and the Sarge won't be riding your butt and smacking you around and doing those kinds of things. So I learned that really, really early on. Butch jokes that I came out of the womb carrying a clipboard and wearing an armband. And he's not too far off the mark. I mean, when I was in school, I was always playground monitor, cafeteria monitor, room monitor, because the teacher knew when she left the room, I would watch everybody. And if anybody got out of their chair without raising their hand, I'm still kind of funky about that now, and I don't like it, I mean, and I love to fly. I love flying, and I love all the instructions the stewardess gives you, and if your plane crashes, you want me in the exit row. Trust me, everybody will get off the plane in an orderly fashion. Any pushing and shoving, and you're going to the back of the line, buddy, and that's just how it is. And it always amazes me how we come together in these programs. I mean, it's just, Butch is such a non-responsible, regular, rule nothing, and I mean, and my whole life is based on all of that, and that we even hooked up at all is amazing. But I understand why that was, because, see, I grew up with a lot of rules and regulations about dating and all this stuff, and our life was so rigid. It was just always so rigid. And then when I met Butch when I was 17, I mean, he's this big hippie guy. He's, I was 17. He was like 23, 24 years old. He'd been married once before. He had a beard down to here, hair down to here, tattoos all over the place, Levi's. And he just, as a matter of fact, gotten his whiskey dragon on his arm. This is my whiskey dragon. Just got it the other day, very impressive. And, and none of that stuff ever registered with me. And why he even called it a whiskey dragon? It was a dragon. How come it's a whiskey dragon? Again, whoo, I don't hear any of that kind of stuff. Because he was so different. Up until this point, I'm dating these little weenie guys that, fit the regulations of life, with all the rules my dad has set forth, and then he's and he's just this, let's go here, let's do this, let's have fun, and I grew up with, active alcoholism. I grew up with violent active, alcoholism, and my dad would hit us a lot, and, so I knew when I was 17 that I didn't want to marry anybody like my dad. There was absolutely no doubt about that. I did not want that to happen. And so I had definitely had a plan about that. And even though Butch was very excessive in his drinking and he did drugs, oh my God, that's a huge rule and regulation violation. Oh my God, that's way over the top. I couldn't even look at that part of it. But he was fun, and he was not a violent person. He liked to get drunk, lay down, pass out. That was his idea of a good time. I shared that one time, and Hank Johnson was sitting in the front row, and he leaned over to Butch and said, "Butch, I don't think that's too much to ask for." And but he was, he was a party guy, and he would just do all this spontaneous stuff, and he was a lot of fun, and it was just this unreal, my God, this is, he was showing me this fun aspect of life, even though it involved drinking and involved drugs. I remember our blind date, we're going on this date, and he stops at a liquor store and asks me what I want to drink. I'm 17 years old. There are rules and laws in the state of California about the drinking age, and I told him what they were, and I'm a minor for Pete criminy sake. What is your problem, And he goes in and get a gallon of Red Mountain wine, if nothing else to impress me what he can consume in sheer volume alone in one night. And I remember, and we were playing a game that required drinking, and one of my rules is I must win all games. So the only way to win this game was to drink, and so that's the only reason I violated my other rule. If I have a higher rule, when you have all ththese rules and regulations, you have to be able to move stuff around all the time, so that you can win. And I remember, being, a little tipsy from that, and him driving me home, and I know he'd had an awful lot to drink, and this is where I always call it, the stuff I think up all the time, because I never ask people, I never inquire about anything. It's very important that I know what I'm supposed to know anyway, whether I've asked or actually gotten any formal knowledge of it or not. I call it information from nowhere. It's floating around in the universe, lands here, becomes fact for me, and I function upon it as if it is fact. And, so I, like I said, I'd had this thing about I'm not going to marry anybody like my dad, or get involved with anybody like my dad. So I instantly deduce, where my dad drinks and becomes very violent and hits people and is mean and angry, and just all kinds of terrible things happen. Butch drinks and it's a party. So therefore, he doesn't have a problem drinking. I just think that up, it lands here, becomes fact for me, because he can handle it. He's a fun guy to be with. And we did this deal, and like you say, he's hanging out with these biker guys, and these people, sell drugs, and, and I mean, like, there's no pretense there, and I'm going with them to these people's houses, and I'm little Miss Susie Q in my little pink sweater and my hush puppy shoes, sitting there with the bikers who are snorting cocaine, shooting heroin, drinking whiskey, and I'm there with my little Diet Pepsi, in the middle of it all, and loving it, because I love all the, the hubbub that's going on and all that. Of course, I would never, ever touch drugs. There's a lot of laws about drugs. You're not supposed to do that stuff. And I'm not going there, and I was not a big drinker, did not participate in all of that, but it was fun, and we really had a good time. And Butch and I did have a lot of fun with his drinking. He was a blackout drinker. He was a disappearing drinker from the very beginning. It was always right up there in my face. He did a lot of drugs, always up there in my face. And I share this with you because when I got to Al-Anon, if you would have said, Larcine, did you know your husband did as much drugs as he did, that he was drinking all the stuff that he was drinking, I would have absolutely denied it and said that I had no knowledge that all that kind of stuff was going on, when in reality it was always right up there in my face. But see, one more time, I'll change everything up because I got to look good no matter what. And this is how I'm affected by the family disease of alcoholism. And I'm not the person that's drinking, that I will compromise the truth, that I will shift everything. Because I got to make sense of all this insanity all the time. I got to make it fit in the rules I have set up for my life, so that I have permission to go on with the next whatever thing I've decided to do. And like I say, Butch and I dated. We had a lot of fun. I ended up getting pregnant, and this was a huge deal for me. It doesn't matter that it was for you, because I am a very big rule and regulation person, and now I have violated a very big rule and regulation, because you're supposed to be married before you get pregnant. That's a rule. Everybody knows that rule. And there's consequences behind that. I mean, I have grown up with nothing but consequences my whole life from my Master Sergeant dad, so I knew all about that. And anyway, like I say, it was a really, really big deal for me. And so I would lie about it. I would tell people I wasn't pregnant when I got married, because I wasn't. There was a 2-month-old baby there, but you go figure that out. That's your deal to do or whatever. But you get to find out you are as sick as your secrets here. And I remember the very first year I was in Al-Anon, we went to the AFG convention, and we were having the meeting up in our room, after the meeting, and there was like about 7 of us in the room, and I heard everybody sharing their deepest, darkest secret. Now, I don't know that that's what they were actually doing, but that's what I heard. So when it came around my turn, I shared with these people how I had to get married because I was pregnant. 7 of us in the room, and it turns out, 6 of them had to get married because they were pregnant, So I got to find out you're just as sick as your secrets. But we decided the 7th was the sickest because she married an alcoholic and did not have to. I know. And 25 years later, that friend is sitting right still there. And then she married another alcoholic and didn't have to. But the really important thing about that is, again, how I'm affected by the family disease of alcoholism, because our life, when it was getting really, really bad behind the drinking, it's because God was punishing me. That's just you broke the big rule and the big regulation, and now God's punishing you, and this is the punishment from above. And I'm here to tell you that if you think God's punishing you, and that's why, the situations are happening to you that are, then you really don't have a choice about anything, do you? I mean, if you want to blame God for everything that's going on in your life, what I've come to learn, when I was in Al-Anon for a while, they said, Larcine, if you're going to screw around and not use any birth control, you might get pregnant. It just might happen. It's just a fact of life. And another thing that was happening to me, how I'm affected by the family disease of alcoholism, because as our life was progressing and getting worse and worse and worse, and this little boy that we had, when his birthday would start coming up, and he's 2 years old and 3 years old and 4 years old and 5 years old, I'm starting to blame this little boy, because if I hadn't had this kid, then I wouldn't be married to this yahoo right here, and my life wouldn't be the piece of crap that it is. And I'm blaming an innocent little child, for the choices that I've made in my life. And again, I'm not proud of it, but this is how I'm affected by the disease of alcoholism, and I'm not even the person that's drinking, the family disease of alcoholism. When Butch and I got married, I want you to know absolutely positively the driving force behind that was, the fact that we had this child. There's no doubt about that. But I want you to know the day that we got married, that Butch was sober, that we got married in a church, that I believed that he loved me as much as he was capable, and I loved him as much as I was capable, and that we were very, very sincere in our marriage vows, that we did want to honor, love, and cherish each other as any two people are, when they're actually going to go do that deal. And, but what Butch didn't know, and I didn't know, was it wasn't just Butch and Larcine that got married that day. It was also the family disease of alcoholism. And I am here to tell you the family disease of alcoholism doesn't love or cherish anyone or anybody, and it absolutely positively means to tear your family apart through the drinker or the non-drinker. It doesn't matter. The family disease of alcoholism, it's not about a family at all. It's just about nothing but total destruction and hurting each other and hurting the people that you love and care about so very much. And again, and it always blows my mind that in such a very short amount of time, that we got to such an awful place, because it ran like a freight train just through our lives. Like Butch said, up until we got married, I'd never discussed his drug use or his disappearing or the fact that he didn't work very much or there were all things I could fix. I had no doubt about it. And once he was mine, and I didn't ever talk to him about any of that kind of stuff. But the day after we got married, I sat him in the kitchen chair and I told him the rules and regulations of our marriage. Because we got them, and he didn't get to consult on any of them, but I had him down. Rule number one is you got to work. We got to make some money. We got a child. We have responsibility, obligations, and rule number two, we're going to get a babysitter once a month, and then we can go out and, you can party and do that, but once a month, because again, I got a plan, a mission statement here, we got to get the deal done, and he sat in the chair, and you understand the rules and regulations of the marriage, and he did this, and I know today, he was so loaded, he was just doing this thing, and he heard what he even still hears today when he doesn't want to hear what I have to say. He heard blah 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 blah. The lips are moving. I can always tell when he's just not. He's gone. He's not. He's not here anymore. And until day number 3 of our marriage. Day number 3 of our marriage, he does not come home all night long. This is a huge violation of the rules and regulations of the marriage. Huge violation. And I watched my mom for years do nothing. I watched my mom just say nothing, do nothing. So I knew the silent treatment didn't work. I am proud to stand before you today and tell you my husband begged for the silent treatment, never got it. Not one time. It's part of the reason he says I talk as fast as I do, because I only had so much time from when he came home to when he passed out to tell him everything. Because by God, he was going to hear it. I was like a little, those little dogs that just yip, 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 yip. He'd just come in there and I would curse. I don't know where. Again, information from nowhere. Lands here becomes fact for me, because I was convinced that if you curse with the right mothers and effers in the right chronological order, like they're going to have some spiritual awakening on you, and it's going to, and I mean, that was not who I was. But that is very, very quickly who I became, how I'm affected by the family disease of alcoholism, and I'm not the person that's drinking. Because what I think I'm trying to do is I'm trying to save something here. So it's fallen apart on me, and it's just oozing out all over, and I cannot get a handle on it. And it's like I get this piece over here, and this piece is gone, and the insanity of all of that and trying to juggle it all. And I'm using his behavior to justify my bad behavior. I cannot tell you how many things I am ashamed to tell you that I did under the guise of being a good wife. That I had to do this to reel him back in, to get him where he was supposed to be. Even though I would know inside, and who doesn't know inside when you have that awful feeling, in the pit of your stomach, that what you're doing is unkind and cruel, that you're hurting somebody you really love, but by God, you got to do it because they're all out of control. I hate the term tough love, and that is not an Al-Anon term. We do not learn that here at all. What we learn in Al-Anon is unconditional love, and that's a whole different deal here. I mean, if we could, if I'm here to tell you that if loving could fix, alcoholics, none of us would need to be in this room today at all. Absolutely not a one of us. But that's not the deal. Everybody's got to walk their own path and do their own deal and find their own happiness, which, I got to find out here is an inside job. No one can hand it to you on a silver platter. No one can love you, back to good health. You have to have that willingness to want to do something different. Because not till you have that willingness can other people even begin to penetrate. And I'm really grateful to learn that. But I just thought, I could just love him. And I loved him till I hated his freaking guts. It's just about how fast it went. I mean, because and to me, that is just the very typical alcoholic marriage that we had going on. Because I loved him with all my heart, and I hated him with every fiber of my being. Because it seemed like he was drinking at us. He was doing all this stuff. I mean, if you told me, okay, Larcine, your drinking is wrecking your family, I would not even go there ever again. If you told me not to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and my life would be wonderful, I would give up peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And another deadly thing, again, information from nowhere lands here becomes fact for me. Because, see, I can drink or not drink. If I can drink or not drink, then he can drink or not drink. So he's drinking at me. It's not, there's no problem going on here other than the fact that he just wants to do what he wants to do. And again, I think that up. He's drinking at me. He's having a great time out there. He hates me or whatever. He's trying to hurt me. And none of those things were ever true. Every time he ever told me, oh, Larcine, I'm so sorry for what happened, and I'll never do it again, I know that he meant that with every fiber of his being. I know that he absolutely did. But I had no idea that once he took the first drink, the deal was over for him. Because that's how the disease of alcoholism works. It's just one drink and it's a done deal anymore. There's no more choice there. But I take a drink and there is a choice for me. And so that's why I can't encourage the people in Al-Anon enough that, if you're new here, I encourage you to go to as many Alcoholics Anonymous meetings as you can. It says in our literature that you should learn all you can about the disease of alcoholism. And I know of no better place to learn that than in open meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because that's where I learned about the disease of alcoholism, from hearing other alcoholics. Because even when Butch got sober and they gave him a book and he was coming home, his credibility with me was zip, zap, zero at that particular point. It didn't matter what he said to me. I didn't believe one word of it. And so I can't tell you how much just hearing other alcoholics share from the podium and the speakers that you've heard this weekend and are still yet to come. It's just a spectacular deal. And anyway, Butch and I, like he said, we started our little war. I don't know, I was in a big war. He was in a little war. That's why I was kicking his butt, probably. And because he was just doing what he was always doing, and I was trying to change another human being. I was trying to take my square husband and fit him in my round hole, because that was my rule, that the husband had to be round, and he was just doing all his stuff, and it was just insanity. And I can regale you with all the stuff that we did, but it was absolutely pretty nuts. And towards the very end of my husband's drinking, I remember he was having a family reunion thing was going on for his, and we knew the date, and now he's drinking and using all the time. We've done the Anabuse thing. Anabuse I thought was my absolute positive cure. It's a pill. He likes pills. I can pull this puppy off, and and stuff like that. And like he says, for 2 years, he did the Anabuse thing, and he was just a pig with a bunch of other drugs. Because even though we got rid of the alcohol in our home, the ism was alive and well, and just having a gay old time. Nothing, absolutely nothing changed at all. And then, like the last 9 months he talked about, he was just always drunk. And we were supposed to have this family reunion, his family reunion. And I made him raise his right hand, swear to God to me, that on blah, blah date he would be sober, the whole 9 yards that we do. Because that's just what we do. And of course the day comes, and guess who's not sober that day? Guess who's loaded and just gone to the, just gone. And I'm livid. I am just as furious as I've ever been with him. And up into this time, this is now years, we've had another kid, and he's never ever violent with me. All this time, he's as nuts as he is, as drunk and loaded as he is, he's never ever raised a hand to me, never been violent with me. But I am very angry, so I'm taking my finger now and I'm poking him in the chest. And I'm egging him on to hit me. Let's just take it to the next level. Let's just go there. And all of a sudden, I became very conscious of our 2 little boys who are 5 and 3 years old at that point, and they're on either side of me, and they're pulling on my pant legs. I remember them yanking away. And I looked down, and tears are just streaming down their face, and they're begging me, their mom, Mommy, please stop yelling at Daddy. And I would like to tell you that I had a moment of clarity then, but I absolutely did not. What I started doing was what I always do when you are always right all the time about everything, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I started yelling and screaming at these little boys. How dare they tell me, their mom, to stop yelling at their dad. He's the reason our life is the piece of crap that it is, that we are so unhappy, that we are in this horrible predicament. And by the time I get done screaming at these little boys, I look up and I watch my loaded, drunken husband going out the front door. And I, the sober mom, say to the drunken dad, where the hell do you think you're going? And the drunken parent turns to the sober parent and says, I'm leaving because we're upsetting the children. And I don't tell you this story because I'm proud of it. I tell you this story because this is where the disease of alcoholism took me. And I'm not even the person that's drinking. In the beginning, the alcoholics, they just do stuff that's huge, just big, huge, bad stuff. He spent entire paychecks, and in one night, all his money would be gone. He'd lose a truck. How do you lose a vehicle that's like, how many thousands of pounds does a truck weigh? How do you lose a truck? It's not like you can't see it, it's not like you can stick it in a pocket and forget you put it there. But all the time, I am taking this insane stuff and trying to make sense of it. There has to be a reason why this is happening. And the things he would say to me. I remember one night I was at my wit's end, and I'm like, I'm done. We're not going to do this anymore. And then he's like, okay, being the real good guy, he goes, let's get a babysitter for the kids. We're going to go to dinner. I'm not going to drink anymore. We're going to work it out. We go to this restaurant, Italian restaurant. First thing he does is order a carafe of wine. This is after he tells me I'm not going to drink anymore. So I look at him. I said, I thought you said you weren't going to drink anymore. And he goes, this is wine. The insanity of alcoholism. Because I know wine is alcohol. But when you are in that insanity, day in and day out and day in and day out, then you start to go, well, is wine alcohol? Is it really? I mean, because he really didn't think it was. I mean, I believe that that's exactly what he meant. But trying to make that craziness deal going on, and it was just nuts. Somewhere in all that nuts, I went to my first Al-Anon meeting because I want the piece of literature that says how to get him to stop drinking and do what you want him to do. I'm not interested in no crappy merry-go-round denial crap-ola, I mean, good God, we got some really poorly named literature in Al-Anon, let me tell you. And, and they weren't willing to tell me how to get my husband sober. They were willing to tell me what I could do for me and my children to make our life better. They said I could find happiness whether the alcoholic was drinking or not. I mean, those are things I'm sure that they were very sincere in what they were saying to me at the time, but I was not there. I had no willingness to do anything different. Yet if they would have said, Larcine, do you want your life to be different? God, did I want my life to be different? What are you willing to do about it? Absolutely nothing, because it's not my fault. Not my fault. Big, big rule for me if it's not my fault. And, fix him and I'll be okay. And so, anyway, he goes through his, he's been arrested lots of times for drunk driving. It's no big deal. So when that time happened, on his last drunk on a scale of 1 to 10, I wouldn't give that puppy a 5. So why that's the one that got him sober, I have absolutely no idea. But, anyway, go figure. And, but then, like you say, 2 days later, he comes downstairs. Oh, I think I have a problem. Oh, yeah, you're really quick, buddy. And, yeah, somebody has one, and I voted, and it's you. And, so, and I just heard they'd opened this hospital. It was a brand new deal and stuff. I said, I don't know. They've got this program. Check it out. He calls. They go in there, and he makes all the arrangements. He does the whole 9 yards. And I remember I'm going out the big locked doors. They got the guard there, at the metal, because he was in the mental institution part, and the guard's unlocking the door to let me out. And he calls me, Larcine, come back. And I was sure it was because he changed his mind, which would have been fine with me. I wasn't too thrilled about leaving him in a mental institution. And, but anyway, I walked back to him, and he reached into his pocket, and he handed me the Valium that he brought in case of emergency, because he'd never, ever parted with a Valium in his life, so I knew something was different here. Now, I went home, and I took it, because I was just a basket case. And I slept 18 hours on one 10-milligram Valium. But in my own defense, I was very, very tired. And, and if it was up to me, he'd still be in that hospital. I like the whole situation. He's locked up. They feed him. They watch him for me. I can go see him whenever I wanted to. I mean, I was happy with that. That was worth the money as far as I was concerned. Oh, good. There's a whole team of people to watch him, because if you got an alcoholic like I got an alcoholic, you need a team of people to watch him, and paid professionals. And anyway, but then, he got introduced to the AA side of that program, and then, from that day to this, he has maintained his sobriety, and I'm really, really, really grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous for saving the life of a really good man. And I always really get upset at this point. And it's not because he almost died, because I wanted him to die really, really bad. And I wanted to be a widow so bad. And somebody once said to me, why didn't you just divorce him? And I was like, and let him win? I don't think so. No, that can't happen. And but the part that I always think about is if Butch had died, I think about me and how full of anger and hatred and the negative disease of alcoholism. And I think about that woman, that was me, raising that 5-year-old and that 3-year-old. And then I wonder what kind of family would have come out of that. because when the alcoholic, you think you get rid of it. You don't. If you're thinking of killing the alcoholic, you're just going to end up in jail, and you're still going to be pissed. And, that doesn't change. So what Alcoholics Anonymous did that day, they just did not save my husband. They also saved a family as well. And that's why I'm really big on family recovery in these rooms, because we are a family today as a result of you teaching us how to love each other. Because we had absolutely not a clue how to do that when we got here. And so anyway, Butch starts going to AA. Oh, he's wonderful. Everybody loves him now. Oh, he's a great guy. Oh. And God dang it, which was very, very hard for me. And because you can't be the great one and then have another great one. It doesn't work that way. You got rules about it. Somebody has to be the best, somebody second. And which is why you should marry an alcoholic. You get to be in first place all the time. And but anyway, he's going to AA and all this stuff, and occasionally I'd go with him to, AA meetings, and the AA women would come up to me. Are you Butch's wife? Yes, I'm Butch's wife. We just love him. He's so wonderful. And I'm like, Chapter 5, how it works. You get him sober and some AA broad steals him away from you. That's how I had it. Yeah, I know. Well, information from nowhere lands here, becomes fact for me. Because what I'm doing is I'm going to AA meetings and it's like he got sober and I enjoyed it very much in the beginning. But after 6 months, I'm like, God, there's only 12 steps. How stupid are you, buddy? He's going to AA all the time, and oh man, Mr. Serenity, Mr. Let go and let God, and walking around the house saying all this crap all the time, and I should turn it over. Yeah, I should turn it over, all right, buddy. I'll turn it over, bend over, and I'll turn it over, and because it's like my friend Crazy Jean says, it's like they get sober and you're out of a job, and I was like, because as welcome as I was made to feel in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, as grateful as I was for the change in my husband's life, my life wasn't really any different. Because I didn't know how to turn it off. I didn't know how not to be angry all the time. Because I didn't know happiness was an inside job. Because I just thought as soon as he's sober, I'm going to be fine. As soon as he goes to work, as soon as he's a good husband, as soon as he's a good dad, that's all going to fix me. And he was all those things, and it did not fix me. It did not fix me at all, and I couldn't understand it. And so I started, after Butch was sober a couple of years, we went to the Palm Springs Roundup, and he suckered me into the family meeting. And I was sitting at the family meeting. They had an AA speaker, an Al-Anon speaker, an Al-Anon speaker, none of them even related. But they shared about the family disease of alcoholism. And in that chair that day, I became this much willing to do something different. And all these programs are about this much willingness to do something different. But you got to have some willingness. You got to have some amount of willingness. And that day I became that much willing. So when I came, after that I started going to Al-Anon, and I didn't come here, to get an alcoholic sober. He already was. I didn't come to keep him sober. He was already almost 2 years sober at that point. I came because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick and tired about not being able to laugh anymore, about walking into a room and sucking the joy right out of it, because that's what I knew how to do really, really good. And trying to control and manipulate people and make them be this way and make them be that way. And I couldn't understand why I could not stop doing that. And so I did what they told us. We go to meetings, we read the literature, you get a sponsor, we work the steps. I'm a rule and regulation person. Sign me up. I did it all right away. I got a sponsor right away. I know there's a lot of people in this, that are in meetings that don't get a sponsor because they're looking for somebody just like them. How stupid can you be? I don't want anybody who knows what I'm thinking. I don't even know what I'm thinking. So what do I, I got a sponsor who was just the opposite of me, older than my mother, had never lived with sobriety, was divorced from her alcoholic husband who was still drinking, never had children of her own. We had absolutely nothing in common. She had a thick Dutch accent. You could hardly understand a bloody word the woman said. And I remember the first time I used her as a sponsor, Butch had a dead battery in his truck, and he asked me to jump it, and I did. And then he ran out of gas. Now, I used to say he yelled at me. What it did was it pissed him off, and he just yelled. But he yelled, so I did what I always do. I yelled right back at him. He stormed off to work, and I went upstairs, called my sponsor, and reported his behavior. And after I was done, she says, well, when Butch gets home tonight, you tell him you're sorry for what you said. It was unkind and unnecessary. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Jeannie doesn't know how we do things in America. And And she missed the who started it, which I always think is so important, you know. I mean, again, it's one of my rules. And so I started telling her the story a second time because she obviously missed crucial points here. And halfway through the second telling, she said, don't tell me what you just told me. And another thing, don't ever call me again and start a conversation with Butch said or Butch did. I am not Butch's sponsor. I am Larcine's sponsor. And for what she said and for what she did today, she owes her husband an amends. I'll see you at the meeting tonight. Click, goodbye, end of conversation. We are done. You know, I learned valuable lessons. Never call your sponsor first thing in the morning because you got all day long to think about what she told you to do. That would drive you nuts. You know, and never call your sponsor when you're going to see her that night at a meeting because she's going to want to know if you follow direction. And I'm a rule and regulation person. I have no choice. I have to do it. And so that night when Butch got home about 6 o'clock, he comes in the house. I walk up to him and I told him I was sorry I let his shitty attitude affect me the way that it had. And that I would try and do better in the future. Now, I know that's not the best amends that you can make. Now I know that. But that day it was the best amends I could make because I never told him I was sorry for nothing. Because when it's always his fault, always his fault. And again, that day I was this much willing to do something different. And I'm here to tell you that's all you need because that much willingness every day has taken our family in San Diego this Easter weekend with you. And we never dreamed about this is where we would be or this is what would happen or whatever. Because what we were is we were sick and tired of being sick and tired and we just wanted to be well again. I just wanted to be able to love my family unconditionally. I wanted what was shared with me in the rooms. That's the gift that you get here if you just stay this much willing to try and do something different. You know, nobody wants to beat you over the head. You know, if you're sitting next to someone with, 15 years in the program or 20 years in the program or 25 years and you want what they got, you got to come for 15 years and 20 years and 25 years and do what they do. Because if we could hit you with the Serenity wand, we'd beat the crap out of you right from the very beginning. Easier on you, easier on us. You know, we all go home happy. But the deal is it takes what it takes. And there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of agony. And the family disease of alcoholism means to keep you in the dark. And when you walk in these rooms, I liken it to turning on the lights. And sometimes it hurts a lot when you've been in the dark for a long, long time. But the light is the truth and the truth will set you free. And sometimes it's hard to hear here, but you got to hang on. The other thing I got here was a God. I didn't grow up with any kind of religion at all. My dad didn't like God. God was not allowed. And so I really didn't have any kind of connotation about it, whatever, but I really had absolutely no faith or belief in a God. And I remember my home group meeting at that time and knew that I was struggling with this God concept. And one night the meeting was about my higher power. And they all shared to me how they'd found their higher power in these rooms. And at the end of the meeting, after the meeting was over, my friend Crazy Jean comes up to me and he goes, Larcine, did that help you? Can you find a God with everybody sharing tonight, or at least borrow one of theirs? And I don't want to do it because I just don't want to. That's just how I am. I don't want to do it. And so I tell Jean, no, I just not going to get the God thing. Don't think I'm ever going to get the God thing. And Jean goes, Larcine, why? God gave you ears? And yes, Jean, so I can hear what you're trying to tell me, but I'm not getting it. And he goes, in most people's cases, God gave you ears so you can hear, but in your case, He gave you ears so you'd have something to hold on to while you yank your head out of your ass. And thank you. And so that night I went out in my backyard and I said, okay, God, my name is Larcine Gattner. I gave Him my address and my phone number, and I want to know that you're there, and pretty much, again, this much willingness to do something a little bit, this much willingness to try to pray, this much willingness to try and be nice to my husband, this much willingness to try and find forgiveness, this much willingness, just to get up and do whatever I'm supposed to do today. That's how life has been because that's the gift you've given me. It blows my mind that I had to come to a room full of strangers to learn how to love my own family, but that is exactly what has happened here. And, and our boys went through their escapades of alcohol and drugs and now they seem to be doing fine. I don't know what the deal is for anybody, If you have active alcoholism and drug abuse going on in your home, I know it's a really tough deal because what's the worst that can happen? They can die. It happens all the time. My sister died. My dad died. I know it does. But I'm here to tell you, that we can't walk the path forward. But we can learn about what unconditional love means. We can learn what it means to be happy in your own home, in your own heart. Because that is what God wants for me. And I know that that's what He wants for you as well. And you can find it in these rooms when you don't do it by yourself and you don't make up a bunch of crappy rules and regulations about how things are supposed to be. What I've learned here is if you stay rigid, you will break. You know, and I got broken a lot of different places. You know, and now, like my husband says, we have this fabulous grandson. We love him so much. He's just, you know, there's this huge Papa-Grandma competition going on all the time now. And but he doesn't know there's a game going on, you know, because he's 2.5 years old, and he is the epitome of unconditional love. And one more time, what a blessing. And we get to love on this kid, and we just get to do so. And when Matthew comes over, that's all we do is Matthew. We don't do nothing else but him. We don't do dishes. We don't cook. Sometimes we do tag team wrestling so one of us can get a rest. And, you know, but for the most part, it's been a good deal. And then Butch with his hepatitis and the interferon stuff, you know, it's just been, like you say, the love and the warmth and just the not being alone part. You know, I remember going to the doctor and the doctor saying very seriously, do you have a support group? And I'm like, holy crap, do you have people that don't have a support group? Because we can loan them people we have in our support group. That is not going to be an issue for us, and it has not been. And one more time, no matter what is going on, you know, him getting the cirrhosis and all that crap is a result of, you know, again, it's a result of choices he made a long time ago. There's no God punishing us. This is just where life has taken us, and so we will walk with it, and we will hold your hands, and we will hold God's hands, and I know we're going to come through the other side, whatever that side is meant to be. And again, one more time, what side are you going to feed, the negative or the positive? So I look at Butch, and, you know, and it's just like, you know, he has to give himself a shot every week. You know, who would have known that his being, you know, trying to be a heroin addict came in handy now? You know, I mean, I didn't know that was going to be you know, something we would need, but we need it. And now, you know, and he knows how to do it because for some reason he doesn't want me to give him the shots. I don't know why. And he'd rather do it himself. But you know, it's just a part of our life. It's not our whole life. You guys are our whole life, and you know, and I cannot thank you enough. How do you thank a room full of strangers for showing you how to love your own family? I don't know. I have a little wooden candle I keep in my kitchen. It's just a little statue, and it says, "A candle loses nothing of its light by lighting another candle." I want to thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for lighting our candle. Thank you.